1.
When the lights go down low and the wolves begin to howl. From somewhere between the paranormal and the abnormal, you're entering into the Parabnormal.
There's a parallel universe, a veil that separates us from all we perceive. True reality. Open the gate, let the truth be known. It's more than meets the eye, we're not alone. Into the paranormal. Into the paranormal.
From Longview, Washington, welcome to the program, friends. We've taken the show on the road up to Cowlitz County. Why? Well, because there's Bigfoot and UFO sightings up in these parts. In fact, the state of Washington is by far the number one place where people report their Bigfoot encounters. Bigfoot Field Researchers Organization is the group that takes these reports, and they've recorded over 700 sightings since the beginning of time. Well, since folks were seeing a Sasquatch or a Bigfoot. The county with the most sightings is Skamania County, which is just one county to the east. It's one of a few counties where there is a law on the books actually protecting Bigfoot. It was back in the late 60s. There were so many reported sightings there that the county and the commissioners decided an ordinance was needed to protect the creature and to keep Bigfoot hunters from shooting one. So the law was adopted in 1969, and it still exists today. It's a serious matter. Harming Bigfoot in Skamania County could cost you 1 year in jail or a $1,000 fine. One of the most famous incidents of all time, though, happened in Skamania County in 1924, which is why I bring it up. Because when you think of Bigfoot encounters in the state of Washington, you think of Ape Canyon. It was 1924 when a group of gold prospectors reported an encounter with a large ape-like figure, actually figures, that they estimated to be about 7 feet tall in a remote area near Mount St. Helens. One member of the group fired a rifle at one of the creatures, and their cabin came under attack. The Ape Canyon incident, as it came to be known, was investigated by the U.S. Forest Service. To the northwest of here in Grays Harbor County, commissioners in 2022 passed a resolution to designate the county as Sasquatch protected grounds. A group of elementary school students actually made the request to do so. The kids, in a letter to the commissioners, said that Sasquatch are historically not an aggressive species and should not be treated as such. There is a history of Bigfoot in Grays Harbor County, most notably the Bigfoot prints that came to be known as the Hereford casts. Clallam County followed the next year in 2023. The Board of Commissioners signed an official proclamation recognizing and honoring Sasquatch. It reads as follows: "It is likely an endangered species and subject to great harm and extinction if it continues to be unprotected." But wait, in Whatcom County, there's a resolution there as well. That's just about as far north as you can get in Washington. It was passed in 1991. Sasquatch Protection and Refuge Area was the declaration. And it stated that if such a creature exists, it is inadequately protected and in danger of death or injury. If they're protecting something that largely people think don't exist, what does that tell you? Well, it could be a publicity stunt. There could be something to it. The Washington National Guard actually has a page on their website about the legend of Bigfoot. There's a lot of Bigfoot references signage and symbols around the Pacific Northwest. I traveled across the Columbia River from Oregon into Washington to do the broadcast this afternoon. And right there are signs all over the place at every place you stop with Bigfoot. And, of course, here at the convention center in Longview, Washington, there is a lot of Bigfoot memorabilia. But on the Washington National Guard website, it reads, "The legends of Bigfoot go back beyond recorded history and cover the world. In North America, and particularly the Northwest, you can hear tales of 7-foot-tall hairy men stalking the woods, occasionally scaring campers, lumberjacks, hikers, and the like. Bigfoot is known by many titles with many different cultures, although the name Bigfoot is generally attributed to the mountainous western region of North America. North American settlers started reporting sightings during the late 1800s and into the 1900s with the occasional finding of footprints, sporadic encounters, and even a few grainy photos and videos have added to the mystery. Those who claim to have seen Bigfoot have described everything from a large, upright ape to an actual hairy human, sometimes standing over 8 feet tall and described as powerfully built. In fact, the Guard's Western Air Defense Sector has adopted the mascot of Bigfoot. Bigfoot was included in an official publication on Washington State back in 1975. The U.S. Army Corps of Engineers published the Washington Environmental Atlas. In a section on wildlife was an entry devoted to Sasquatch. The atlas referenced reports of hair samples allegedly analyzed by FBI laboratories, stating that the samples could not be matched to any known species. It also described physical characteristics attributed to the creature, including estimated foot size based on plaster casts of footprints and general facial features. While the text noted that the existence of Sasquatch is disputed, its presence in a federal government publication is certainly unusual. When we were here at Squatch Fest, as it was known, in 2020, or maybe it was 2021, I talked about a video released by the state's Department of Transportation of a Bigfoot-like creature on Sherman and Snoqualmie passes. Perhaps Bigfoot like the cold, damp climate that we have out here. We get a lot of rain. Bigfoot is, of course, a marketing theme all across the Pacific Northwest. As I mentioned, it's really hard to find a gift shop that doesn't sell some sort of Bigfoot collector's items. In fact, I'm here with vendors at the event, and I can tell you the Bigfoot economy is alive and well. Lots of folks are selling their Bigfoot-related goods this weekend. Chambers of Commerce and tourism agencies all across the state have sections on their website dedicated to the legend. In fact, this event is put on by the Kelso-Longview Chamber of Commerce. They are neighboring towns, Kelso and Longview, separated by the Cowlitz River. And for the first time, they are entering the alien realm. Now, Bigfoot might be more popular based on the number of depictions around these parts, but it is still, though, a rare phenomenon. There are about 10 times as many UFO reports in the state as there are Bigfoot reports. In fact, the National UFO Reporting Center has logged more than 7,500 reports. If you remember, I mentioned the BFRO has about 700 or so Bigfoot reports. There are famous UFO events that have happened in the state, including one that I discovered in preparation for this show that I had no idea was a thing. And it's a pretty out-of-this-world event. Now, while I have not heard of an alien abduction, at least of a human, here in Washington, I now have actually heard of an abduction by, I guess, aliens of an animal. And actually happened here in Longview. So we're going to talk Bigfoot, Sasquatch, UFOs, aliens, all tonight from Longview, Washington. I'm Jeremy Scott.
Into the paranormal.
Live from Longview, Washington, it's Squatch Fest and Galactic Fest. We're combining Bigfoot with aliens. I still have yet to find one myself here, but time is still short. We still have a few hours in the day. We're joined by Tobe Johnson and also by Alicia Phifer, the YouTube series Olympic Strange Days. Tobe, we've talked to you before. How are you?
Great. Thanks for having us.
And Alicia, welcome to the program for the first time.
Yeah, it's exciting.
So, how did you get involved with Tobe? We've talked with him many times through the Owl Moon Lab. Did you come into this process somewhere along the line?
We actually met a couple years ago at this first Sasquatch Summer Fest in Oak Ridge, Oregon, and I was interested in his story of Owl Moon and wanted to talk to somebody that kind of drew a line between Bigfoot, UFOs, and paranormal, because that's kind of the direction that I lean towards myself and my experiences I've had. So
you think there's some crossover then?
I do, yes.
Yeah.
And so Owl Moon Lab down near the Cottage Grove area?
Cottage Grove, Umpqua Forest. It's a hot spot, Jeremy. You know, these hot spots exist all over the U.S., all over the globe. Skinwalker Ranch, probably the most noted of them. But these other Skinwalker twins exist all over the planet, and Owl Moon was just one of them. Now we live in one again in the little town of Port Townsend, Washington. And what we're going to talk about today around 4 o'clock is going to be kind of groundbreaking stuff caught on FLIR, some never before seen stuff, and some incredible audio. So we look forward to presenting it. We actually did a dry run. We're totally thrilled with the way it looks. So we have some interesting stuff going on here too. This piece of molten slag is from the Owl Moon Lab, and I just delivered a chunk of it here. I broke it off with a Leatherman and gave it to the guys at MUFON. They're going to run some tests on this here because it's kind of inexplicable. So I love bringing hardcore evidence here. We have a sound booth, like a listening station for people that want to hear the phenomena, ghost, EVPs, what Alicia caught, and then all this physical evidence.
So how did you come across this property? The Owl Moon Lab, as we're calling it. It's not a lab. It's out in the middle of the woods.
Yeah, Owl Moon was actually the name of the full moon. It's like a pagan name for the giant moon that was existing, I think, a week before Easter. The lab portion of the thing got to the fact that we felt like we were being studied. So were we the experiment, right? So that's the whole phenomena. It's just you study it, it studies you. And so that's how we got the name. It's still an active area. I know that the BFRO, Finding Bigfoot, have shot episodes in and around that area. It's a hot spot, and it's still active. Like, there's another guy working it. We don't work with him, but he's having absolute stuff happen. So it wasn't just us. Alicia's had stuff happen there. We've taken Dr. Simeon Yahne there. We've all experienced stuff there. And it may be one of the most important discoveries as far as the crossover phenomena of Bigfoot and the other phenomena that I know of. But it's kind of yet to be determined because I think it's slightly underappreciated.
What was your first experience out there?
Well, initially I didn't have anything the first time I sat out there. And then the second time we had kind of an interesting, I was out there with a buddy, Jeff, at the time. It was before you and I were working together, but it was a drumming that happened out there. It was coming from a creek.
So there was a beat of some sort.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And then another time I've captured some interesting EVPs as well, that kind of have like a synthesizer sound to them. And as soon as I sent that to you, you were like, yep, that's exactly kind of the EVPs that we would capture.
Is there a certain cadence to that, Tobe?
Well, so there is a certain cadence to it, and it's musical. We have audio from the homestead, we'll call it, Daryl's property, where you hear a syncopated rhythm of something that picked up a 50-gallon drum and hit it like Ricky Ricardo, bongo style, bum, 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 bum. And what the weird part was is the night before, we were talking about how drumming elicits the spirit realm. Like, if you watch Beyond Skinwalker Ranch, when the Native Americans are at the Mesa and the Uinta Basin and they're doing ceremony, they get a differential, a cold spot around the people that are drumming. That's not possible. Why is drumming eliciting a cold spot around Native Americans when they're drumming? So something's going on. And with Allie's FLIR, with the audio we have, with the people we have coming to our conference, can you grab that slip of paper, Allie?
Yeah.
We actually have a conference coming up with Dr. Simeon Hine. Dr. Simeon Hine is the author of Dark Matter Monsters. He's going to be in attendance October 1st through 3rd. We call it Olympic Strange Days. It's a 4-day retreat in the little town of Beaver, Washington. And so if you want to join us, tickets go on sale on Valentine's Day at olympicstrangedays.com. 4 days of madness with Allie and I and 40 new friends of yours.
Guaranteed Bigfoot sightings?
I will say this. You will have a guaranteed experience there because we're going to teach remote viewing around a giant campfire for 4 days. So someone's going to leave with an experience there. We did have actual footprints that showed up at the camp, and we did get vocals.
Yeah.
So we've done this as our 3rd year of doing this. And, it's a beautiful, right on the Solduck River outside of Forks. If you love Twilight, vampires, werewolves, oh my, now you have Bigfoot to add to the list.
Have you heard like the drumming, the music or whatever, if you want to call it, at other locations?
I haven't. Al Moon was the only place I actually heard that.
So have you come face to face with the Bigfoot, or have you only heard
I've yet
these
to
things?
see them. I've just been approached at close range and have heard the vocalizations. I've had them running past me at close range. So more on the audible side, but still convincing enough to have me believing in them.
Are these, like, obviously not words, sentences that we can understand, right?
Sometimes, yeah, because the mimicry involves, I think it's called a pigeon, when you're using someone else's language to understand things. So, for example, in the Sierras at the Sierra camp, can you grab that Ziploc bag for me real quick there?
Yeah, we're doing video and audio as well here. So if you're just listening on the audio side, go to Facebook,
so this
YouTube.
Is dirt. First of all, I want to present to you as a gift there, Jeremy. This is actually what's left of the Sierra camp. We were filming there. And all those years ago, they would actually get the word food that would come up quite a bit. And that was at a request for a delivery of food from the campers. So they were using words, English words, but also what we'll call samurai chatter. Mm-hmm. And Allie and I hear that quite a bit, even in our own property. We're hearing what sound like human words or English words with their own language. And I don't think they're ever alone when they're speaking.
I will gladly accept this from you. This means a lot. This is actually my second sample from a Bigfoot site, the other being the famous Patterson-Gimlin film site. So now I have this, and this will be treasured, and it comes in a bag. The last time I was given it to it in a glass bottle at a show like this, and it shattered.
Oh, no.
So they gave me a replacement. They were so generous, wanted me to really have this. So I know that you want me to have this, and that means a lot to me as well. Tobe and Alicia, in the final moments that we have, any other things you want to share with us? I know have you encountered like nests and hairs and that sort of thing?
So hairs, yeah. In fact, Allie collected some hairs from our property with Rich Jermeau. He's a pretty famous retired police officer, had an encounter in La Push. Allie and Rich collected some hairs off a broken game camera that looked like something had put its finger through the motion detector part of the game camera and shifted it to the left. So we have biologicals at hand. They're actually in North Carolina right now getting tested. So will it come back as human? Will it come back as a bear? We don't know.
Find out.
It's crazy times.
You believe in Bigfoot, though?
No, I know they're real. Okay. Yeah, I've seen one. So to see something and have all these layered experiences, 20 years, Jeremy, right? Yeah. Like, I'm not looking for a myth at this point.
Yeah, it was 7 years ago we talked for the first time, so you've been doing it for quite a while now.
Yeah. They can't get me to stop, dude. Look at you. You're still going.
Still going? Yeah, still going. And what about you? You believe in Bigfoot?
I do, yes.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And if you, I guess, keep on searching, you never know what you might find, right?
Yeah,
you might find it out at Olympic Strange Days or on a future YouTube episode.
Yeah, we'll see you in McMinnville.
Yeah.
We'll be down at UFO Fest, yes, in McMinnville, coming up in May. That's where we met for the very first time. Tobe Johnson and Alicia Phifer. I'm Jeremy Scott. We'll be back from Longview, Washington at Squatch Fest and Galactic Fest.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
This mystery is known as Sasquatch to many, and in the state of Washington is said to actually have more reports of sightings than any other state.
For decades, there have been countless reports of encounters with something deep in these woods, something big, something that can't be explained.
Two things rotating my truck. Then they started talking. I could do it the best I can, and whoo,
A giant creature that roamed the forest, were passed from generation to generation, and continue to this day.
The creatures did get onto the roof, and the four men fired through the slits in the cabin roof, as well as through the slits in the logs of the walls.
Dude, that's a squatch.
And we're back at Squatch Fest and Galactic Fest here in Longview, Washington. Sitting next to me, Cliff Barackman from, well, of course, the Bigfoot Museum, the curator of the North American Bigfoot Center, also a Bigfoot field researcher. You've been doing this for over 30 years now, is that correct?
It seems like it, yeah.
Yeah, and you've been, in how many continents, how many countries, how many states?
I don't know, 5 continents, I think. Countries, I'd have to count my fingers. I don't know, 6 or 7 probably, and 46 states, I think, looking for these things.
Do you think there's undiscovered hominids in all these places, potentially?
Most of them. I don't think they're in the UK, and Animal Planet had me go there. I don't think there's any in the UK. I don't think there's any in Hawaii. They had us go there, but that was kind of a Brady Bunch moment, right? Because Brady Bunch went to Hawaii as well. Right. But the other places certainly have some sort of relic hominoid there.
I mean, you did an episode of Finding Bigfoot, I believe, Oregon versus Washington.
Mm-hmm.
Is that about right? And you were the Oregon team, from my understanding.
Yeah, that sounds right.
And then you had a Washington team, and they were kind of comparing sightings on either side of the Columbia River.
Yeah, something like that. It was kind of just a gimmick for the show or whatever. But I mean, we got to go bigfooting in Oregon and Washington at the same time. That was kind of fun.
But you saw evidence on both sides of the river.
Yeah. And I mean, I particularly like that episode because I got to go bigfooting in my normal bigfooting spots.
Yeah.
I got to go to the blueberry bog. I got to take Bobo and take him go to the spots that I kept telling him about. But Bobo lives in California. I live in Oregon, so I had a chance to share some of my best spots with Bobo and happened to film a show at the same time. It was fun.
Right. So what's it like running a museum where folks show up to and they want to see casts, they want to pick up a book, maybe meet a famous Bigfoot celebrity throughout the years? I mean, you've done it all kind of out there.
Yeah, well, running the museum is the most satisfying work I've had. And I've had great jobs. I was an elementary school teacher for 14 years, and that was very obviously rewarding in many ways.
Yeah.
I've worked in fishing tackle. I played some music for money and that kind of stuff. But the museum is by far the most satisfying job I've had because obviously Sasquatch is a big part of my life. And now I've continued educating because, like I said, I was an elementary school teacher. So now I'm just educating the public that Sasquatches are just perfectly normal animals, and this is the evidence available for them, and all that kind of stuff. But also, it gives me an opportunity to do field work on a regular basis. I'm in the woods at least once a week. I mean, I've been, I think, 6 times in the last 2 weeks, and because there's stuff going on right now. And then on top of that, we're also working to curate historical collections to kind of preserve the history of the subject for after discovery, because Sasquatches are real. They will eventually be identified or recognized as a real species. And all this pre-discovery history that we're currently living through is going to be of great historical interest. And it seems like most people aren't really interested in that. But it's going to be of great historical interest after academic recognition.
Tell us about some of the guests you've had at the Bigfoot Center.
The guests? Well, I mean, occasionally we do little side gigs or whatever. Like when Dr. Meldrum was still with us, if he came out, he would like call me and say, "Hey, I'm going to be out there. You want to do something?" And so we'd have special events for our museum members. We have a special museum member thing for $6 a month, and they get a lot of perks and videos that we make at the shop and stuff. But Meldrum would speak out there whenever he was in the area. We've had Michael Freeman out there several times talking about his father's work. We've had Mark Marcel giving us updated information on the Ape Canyon situation, including that, like a lot of the other people who like rediscovered the mine entrance back in 2024, that sort of stuff. So yeah.
You also had one of my friends show up there, Scott Violette, and he was so honored that you would allow him to sign the door.
Oh yeah,
with all the names of the famous Bigfoot aficionados and researchers that have come through the center that you've crossed paths with over the years.
Yeah, we have a sliding door that I kind of basically blatantly stole the idea from Larry Lund, who's one of my good friends and idols, and Larry has been a very important figure in my life. Larry had a little office downstairs in his farmhouse, and all the famous Bigfooters that would come to visit him, because Larry was a wonderful chronicler. He wasn't really a field guy, but he knew everybody in the game, and he had all these files and wonderful resource for information. And he was friends with all the founding fathers of the subject, John Green and Renee DeHinden and Peter Byrne and Grover Krantz and on and on and on and on. And whenever somebody came to visit him, he would have them sign the door to the little basement office that he had. And I thought that was a wonderful idea. And so I kind of stole it. And Larry, of course, Larry loves it. Larry was just in the museum this past week, and he loves the idea. So that's what we do.
We're looking at, I think these are mostly footprints. There might be some handprints or some knuckle prints or some knee prints here. We can go into that in just a bit. But you've become quite familiar with these prints throughout the year. What have you learned about Sasquatch prints?
A lot, actually, a lot. Not only about the anatomy and morphology of the foot, but also out in the wild. Finding footprints and tracking these animals in the wild is, in my opinion, the best way to learn about what they do. I've heard, actually, I literally have heard Sasquatch researchers say that we shouldn't be bothering with footprints anymore. What else could we learn from them? Which is ridiculous to me, because we don't know what we're going to learn until we do, right?
And each one's different.
Exactly. But looking at Sasquatch prints like on a table is super interesting. Like this print over here, for example, the two prints over here really show us about the flexibility of the foot and and also the thickness of the fat pad on the bottom of the foot, on the plantar surface of the foot. That particular print that is being scanned right now by the camera, there was a rock protruding in the middle of the bottom of the foot when it was stepped on. And you can see that around the rock, the fat pad on the bottom of the foot contours around it in a curving manner, which is actually impossible to do with a wooden stomper of any sort. This particular foot over here, from an individual called Wrinklefoot, you can see that the fat pad expanded laterally out into the substrate as the pressure came down on the toe, which is also impossible to do with a fake prosthetic. And out in the woods, when you find tracks in the wild, they're usually not this clean and nice looking. Most tracks are pretty messy because they're walking through forest stuff instead of mud for the most part. But by tracking them, you can learn about things like when they're in certain areas, or perhaps glean a little information on their social structure. For example, the last few years, very often when we find a 12-inch footprint in this one particular area, we're finding a 14-inch footprint within a few hundred yards. So is that a female and its offspring, an adolescent offspring? Maybe. There's a lot of speculation and hypotheses being formed at this point, but you also find out about not only their social structure, but perhaps what they're eating. Mm-hmm. I have found foraging signs many times. I found signs where Sasquatch prints were next to logs that had been turned over. So they're eating the bugs and stuff like that live under the logs. I have found rotten cedar stumps at the end of trackways, or in the middle of trackways, really, where the animal went up and started clawing through the cedar stump, going after whatever's living in there, probably grubs or termites. Mm-hmm. We have found knee prints in association with handprints and also footprints next to rodent holes. So these things are eating rats, basically. Not technically rats. These are actually, I think the genus is Odontia, if I remember right, but they're basically mountain beavers, if you know what those are. Yeah, so these things are eating rodents and bugs and all that sort of stuff. So just a little bit of insight into their behaviors.
Have you been able to determine what could be faked or not as far as prints are over the years based on, what you've personally collected?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. In fact, I did find fake tracks out in the Manhood National Forest this past July. They were obvious. You see, I've learned a lot. One particular trackway, and it was actually featured on Finding Bigfoot, the London trackway, very, very long trackway. Those are fake. I thought that they're real for a long time, and I'm on TV saying they are real, so eggs on my face. But at the same time, honestly, I think one of the biggest problems with the Bigfoot community is that so few people are willing to admit they're wrong about anything. But being a flexible thinker and an intelligent person, when more information comes in, well, I'm willing to change my mind, right? And I think we all should be like that. Yeah. But the London tracks had me fooled for a while, but then, and part of it is because I didn't have enough time with them, because at that point on the TV show, they were just discovered during our break, during like a 3-week break or some 4-week break that we had. No, it was actually during a 2-week break we had. Then I was back on the road. And I was on the road 7 or 8 months a year at that point, filming the TV show.
Yeah, it's all fun, they say.
No, it's not at all. It's not fun. Not fun at all. Yeah. Excuse me. Well, it is fun, but and I didn't have enough time with them. But about 2 years or so, once after the find in 2012, I really got deep into it, and I found these strange anomalies in the tracks that didn't sit well with me. I couldn't explain with a living foot. So I reached out to another hoaxer, it turns out. Another guy tried to fool me. And so I reached out to him, and I asked him, hey, you wouldn't know anybody with fake wooden stompers I could borrow, do you? And he goes, well, I'll make you one. And he did. He made me a set. And and so I ran around with those in the mud and sand and stuff, cast my footprints. And the problems that I saw in the London tracks I found in my own fake tracks. And so clearly they're fake, right? And it was that's my bad, so to speak, because I was so hesitant to do any work with fake stompers, and because I didn't want people to accuse me of faking anything. The same reason that I didn't have monkey suits for a long time, you know, because he has a suit, that's just him. If I ever film a Sasquatch, I'll be accused of that because you know how the scoffsticks are, right? But it was foolish of me to think that way. I should have been doing experiments with fake stompers from very early on, because my experiments with the stompers not only taught me that the London tracks are fake, but they also really make the real tracks stand out far more starkly against the background. I probably learned more about real tracks by experimenting with fake stompers than doing anything else. It was a fascinating experiment, and it's one that I should have done much earlier.
Well, part of the things that makes research fun, and you will probably agree, is that you do change your opinion over time because there is new evidence that comes forward, and it's only right, you know?
Yeah. It's good to be flexible in your thinking and the things that you think are true.
Yeah.
You know, and it's very important actually, because a lot of the stuff I'm finding in the Bigfoot world that everybody takes for granted. Oh, that's what Bigfoots do. That's where they go. That's what they're doing. I'm starting to question a lot of this stuff just because, as a thought experiment, if nothing else. Like, is it true that they're solitary animals? Everybody says they are. I don't think so. The evidence strongly negates that, I guess, or is contrary to that. This idea that's somehow gotten out that they're migratory in some sort of way, the evidence is strongly against that. Where did that come from? Like all these givens that people assume to be true because they heard it somewhere. I'm finding a lot of this stuff isn't held up by the evidence very well. So at this point, I'm willing to question anything. Like, I personally don't think they're that smart. I mean, they're very smart. Don't get me wrong. They're apes. They're absolutely apes, and apes are extraordinarily smart, right? We're apes, for example, but not as smart as people give them credit for, I don't think. And as far as their human likeness, where does that come from? Like, I don't get it. I mean, they walk on two legs, but what else do they have? Because, like, for example, if you put a human head next to a side profile of the Patterson Gimlin film subject's head, what you notice is that her face is very flat. It goes up to the brow ridge, and then from there, it cuts back at almost 90 degrees to the top of the head, where we assume the sagittal crest would be. But if you put a human head there, what you see is a big frontal lobe. That's why we have this giant forehead above our eyes. They don't have that. And so, well, the point is, like, they don't have a frontal lobe, and that's where a lot of the human stuff happens. So they do have a frontal lobe. It's just not as well developed as ours. It seems to be about as well developed as all the other ape species. Well, okay. Well, isn't that interesting? So these people who are loudly proclaiming that they're humans, what are they basing that on, really? Really, at the end of the day? The fact they walk on two legs? Ostriches do that. They're not humans. You know what I mean? So I don't know. They certainly don't have stuff. Anyway, I'm trying to question the basic premises of the field of subject that we're all interested in, and seeing what actually is being held up by the evidence. And I'm finding a lot of it isn't. This mythology that has developed around, oh, we all know they do that. Yeah. Do we really? And I think that's a worthy endeavor. Question what we believe, and as far as I'm concerned, and I invite all your listeners to do this as well. I'm one of those guys, like the government always says, trust but verify, right? When you deal with other countries. I will never lie, but you should always check what I say to see if I'm incorrect. Because
right here as well.
Yeah, I don't lie because I don't have the memory to lie because I never remember what I say. So I don't lie, but I'm incorrect a lot. Absolutely, please verify what I say to see if it holds up, and if it doesn't, let me know. I'm more than happy to change my mind.
The mystery lives on. We're talking Bigfoot from Squatch Fest and Galactic Fest. He's Cliff Barackman from the North American Bigfoot Center. I'm Jeremy Scott. Into the Paranormal. We'll continue live after this. I'm joined by Kathy Strain here from Squatch Fest and Galactic Fest in Longview, Washington. Seasoned archaeologist, anthropologist with over 20 years of professional experience, and has spent nearly as many years investigating the Sasquatch phenomenon. So have you ever seen a Sasquatch with your own two eyes, or have these been like vocal encounters, or have you found evidence, or what's your story?
I actually have seen them. I've seen 4 Bigfoot total on daylight and 3 separate sightings. That's what I talked about today on stage. My first sighting was in 2012 in an area in Oklahoma known as Area X. And basically, there was a lot of activity that day. We were chasing rock throws, hitting tin roofs. And essentially, I waited around to see what was going to happen because I wasn't interested in tripping or falling or anything, running around that. And then in the end, in broad daylight, 2 of them came out towards us. They thought we were still chasing the rock throws. And I saw them in a place we call the bottleneck, and it's just a cleared area that used to be an old driveway. And I ran at them. I said, there they are. And I just dashed right at them.
Did you keep up with them?
Oh, God, no. They turned and ran up a hill like the wind. And so, but I got a very good view of the big one, which was kind of a lanky 6-footer, but with really strong muscles on the thighs and on the buttocks. And then there was a little one that was about 4 feet tall, maybe, that Bob and the other people that were with me paid more attention to because we were each kind of focused on what we were seeing because you only have seconds, you know. And so, yeah, it was pretty incredible. They're definitely very patty-like. They were covered in black hair. I didn't see any skin underneath the hair at all, but they were younger, I had the impression. And I had the distinct impression that it was a older sibling having to watch the younger bratty brother, and the bratty brother wanted to get closer to see what we were doing, and the sibling was trying to say, no, let's not do that. That's dangerous. And then crazy lady ran at him and said, hey.
And you were the crazy lady.
I was the crazy lady. I guess I was.
What did you yell at them or say to them?
I said, there they are. And I ran right at them. So.
And they did what?
They turned and ran up the hill away from me.
You think that they are fearful of humans at some point?
No, I think they were more fearful that they got caught. And I think that's the idea of Bigfoots. Don't do whatever you want, but just don't be seen, you know? And
yeah. They try to be stealthy, so when they're caught, they will turn tail and run.
No, you didn't see what you think you saw. So I saw it was broad daylight, and they move very fast. They clearly built for that environment.
So were all your encounters in the same area, Area X?
Yes. And they were all in daylight. The next sighting was a baby Bigfoot that was in a tree that went to the end of a limb. And at first what I thought I was seeing was a baby chimpanzee. Because that's, you try to put everything in frame of what you know. And then I was like, well, there's no chimpanzees in the middle of Oklahoma. And it just bounced itself went to the end of this limb and then dove over to the other limb across the bottleneck and then just zoomed through the rest of the trees. And so when the other people with me got to see it zooming through all the trees. And then in 2014, I saw what likely could be somewhere between 8 to 10 feet, all gray one that walked. I was the last person up, and I think it was kind of trying to count us, how many are still here. And when I came out, it was like, okay, I can leave now. And it just walked through this tree line. I didn't see its head, but I saw all of its body below it. And it was just massive, huge shoulders.
This is the Oklahoma area, as you're saying?
Yep.
Anything particularly about this area, why there seems to be a concentration of sightings there?
Well, I believe this compound is basically, there's only one road in, one road out, and this compound is at the end of the usable road. And I think there's a big creek that runs through there, and I think there's something there that they can't get anywhere else, like maybe a mineral, maybe a salt deposit, something to that effect. And I think because we're still having sightings after all these years. They had sightings years before that. There was an old lady that lived out there, and she would leave food out for them because they were such frequent visitors. And so I think it's something they just can't get somewhere else.
Have you seen them drink and eat yourself?
No, I haven't.
So do we know what they like? I mean, they obviously like bodies of water, fresh water.
Yeah, they need water. They need resources. We know there's a lot of black walnut out there, and we found things that indicate that they use rocks to smash the nuts open, and so but those are everywhere. That wouldn't be the explanation of why that area in particular. It's something else.
Do you find yourself terrified, scared of
No.
of these creatures?
No.
Any reason to be?
No, they wanted to kill you. They had already
Snap you like a limb?
they would have already done it. Yeah.
But sometimes it's the glowing eyes that I think creep a lot of people out.
I think so, and I always had the general fear that I don't want them looking at me through a window. That's just too much for me. Boggy Creek kind of vibes. But
so you have limits?
I have some limits.
Okay.
I don't like snakes, and I don't want something watching me use the bathroom or anything like that. That's just a little bit too far for me. But yeah, I think inherently, when you realize how large they are, how fast they are, I think that can be very intimidating. But I'm not entirely certain they don't know that we aren't as fast. And I often wonder, because sometimes, you see these videos of night shots where the ape is kind of looking at you from behind the tree like this. And it's like they don't know we can't see as well in the dark as they can. And so we're just as mysterious to them as they are to us.
So they're very stealthy creatures.
Very stealthy. Very stealthy.
Kathy, we so appreciate the time.
Oh,
thanks for coming out
me.
to Southwest Washington.
I enjoyed it.
This is the Bigfoot capital of the world, they say.
Oh, it very well may be. I mean, it's always a good turnout, a good festival. I highly recommend it. People should come and get to just meet people that are like-minded.
Right.
It's fun.
We're at Squatch Fest and Galactic Fest in Southwest Washington on Into the Paranormal. I'm Jeremy Scott. We're here in Bigfoot's backyard. We're in Longview, Washington at the Cowlitz County Event Center, and I'm so honored to sit here with a good friend of mine. We've chatted many times over the years about ghosts, about cryptids, and of course this falls right in line because we're talking about Bigfoot here at Squatch Fest. He is Jeff Davis. Welcome to the program.
Hi, thanks for having me.
It's good to have you once again here. Yeah, we just it's good to catch up with you and the research that you've been doing on this subject. Of course, Jeff was on Alaskan Killer Bigfoot as well, one of the experts that they brought in to basically educate others about the area. One of the fascinating things that you're actually presenting here at Squatch Fest and Galactic Fest in Longview is about the possibility that Sasquatch, Bigfoot, these creatures may find comfort, refuge, shelter in caves, and perhaps there could be some healing properties in there, and that's why they may be able to live as long as they do and recover from some of the battle scars.
Right, from injuries. Absolutely. And this is just a speculative theory at this point, because we haven't actually done experiments. But in essence, there is evidence from human experiments on humans that in its basicness, that hyperbaric chambers where you have increased air pressure above the normal air pressure and increased oxygen promotes healing, especially injuries and wounds. Now, of course, Bigfoot in a cave doesn't have that, but there might be special conditions where some kind of gaseous venting, the edges of a volcanic eruption, or trapped gases coming up from deep in the earth containing certain beneficial gases. For instance, historically, the oracle at Delphi in Greece would have prophetic visions, and the theory is that there was a water channel that came into the temple, and there was fumes coming off of it of a gas called ethylene, which, among other things, was used for decades as an anesthetic. And so that the prophet would breathe in these fumes and reach this enhanced state of consciousness and have these prophetic visions. But this is also healing, cutting down on pain. And there are rare gases such as argon and xenon, where they have, again, with human experiments, found that they promote healing, particularly in cardio and brain injuries. So this is just the beginning of a theory, but I'm trying to bring this out. I'm not the only one who had the first theory, but in a place where people actually come, they want to have open minds, and hopefully people will act on this and do their own research, and maybe eventually we will get experiments.
I mean, man couldn't survive if we're talking about some of these gases underground. I mean, you're talking about food source, water source, but maybe Bigfoot doesn't need any of that, and maybe these gases, which could be detrimental to our health, maybe there's something that is beneficial to them and not harmful.
Absolutely, and it would be rare occurrences because, as you pointed out, there are a lot of toxic gases too. So, if it were all that common, our ancestors would have passed that knowledge down to us, and we'd all be living in caves.
Yeah.
But you have this convergence of just the right circumstances. But here, the Pacific Northwest, where we have these vast networks of caves, where we have active volcanoes and fault lines, generating these gases and creating these conditions. That's kind of my point, my question.
Maybe caveman really means ape man.
Maybe. I mean, our ancestors were pretty smart people, and they spent a lot of time in caves.
Right. And these are obviously off the beaten path areas. I went to ape caves one time with the Boy Scout troop, and I had to get down on all fours and crawl, and it was icky, and there were bats, and I just felt weird about it.
Yeah.
So I wouldn't do it again. But point being, not a lot of people go there, so why not? Why not refuge?
Exactly. In human prehistory, if you've heard of Lascaux Cave in France, where way in the back of these caves, there's a chamber where 30,000 years ago, maybe, people drew these beautiful cave art paintings of animals on the wall. Why did they pick those chambers? Because it's far back.
Yeah. Right. Have there been reports of Bigfoot actually being wounded?
Yes. For instance, in the early 1900s, there was the Ape Canyon incident where some miners...
Right here in Washington.
Yeah, right here in Washington on the edges of Mount St. Helens, some miners, one of them saw a Bigfoot and shot at it. He believed he shot it. It fell down into a ravine. And later on, the miners in their cabin, it was attacked by Bigfoot Big Feet. And one of the theories is that it didn't die, but healed very quickly.
Interesting, but we shouldn't be shooting at these creatures.
No, absolutely not. And from a mundane law enforcement standpoint, Skamania County is a Bigfoot-free zone.
Clallam County, I think Grays Harbor County, there's a couple of others. They all have protections against Bigfoot. You could go to jail, you could be fined.
Exactly.
But isn't that partially admitting that it exists if you have to have a law to protect it?
I would think so. So,
just saying.
Of course, the Skamania County ordinance was passed on April 1st.
Oh, well, that changes things.
But maybe even if it was a joke, it's still the law, isn't it?
So you've spent a lot of time in the Cascade Forest?
Yeah, I worked for the Gifford Pinchot National Forest, and I worked for the Mount Hood National Forest on either end of the gorge, the Columbia River, north and south.
Which I hear is a dividing line, obviously, between Oregon and Washington, where there's Bigfoots on either side. So did you have an encounter?
I did not, and I have to say, it's almost like a paradigm. I wasn't looking for Bigfoot. My job was archaeology. So I could have just not perceived it because I wasn't looking for it. So it's called a paradigm.
Did you hear, though, from other people out there who had said that they had had encounters in the Cascade Mountains?
Yes, we had a couple of Bigfoot, I don't say hunters because it's, of course, it's not hunting to kill, but yes, we had people come in every now and then, and people would come into the visitor center. So I heard second and third hand where people had weird encounters.
Yeah. Have there been, let's see, what kind of climates do Bigfoot actually prefer? Considering that a lot of the sightings are here in the Pacific Northwest, it's cold, it's damp, it's dreary, many months out of the year. The Pacific Northwest climate has got to be better than, some other parts of the country where it's just so humid and hot and miserable.
Well, absolutely. Here's an interesting thing. The higher your body mass, the harder it is to lose heat.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's why when we had the ice ages, we had all these big critters, megafauna, because they retain their body heat for longer and they didn't freeze to death. But bad things happen when you get something that's that big that goes into a hot climate, and then it can't get rid of its heat, and then it dies from the heat.
Interesting. Let's just show the audience what Jeff has available here. You've written many great books. I have a lot of them in my collection. You've got a new one, which I think is a digital.
Yeah, I have a Haunted Tour Guide to the Pacific Northwest, and I put out the first edition as a paper book, and this is, I think, is the third edition, so it is an ebook.
These are places where people can go visit and have ghost encounters?
Absolutely. 220 plus places across the Pacific Northwest, hotels, motels, parks. It's not just for pay places, but restaurants, parks. There are a couple of like walking paths that have their own ghosts.
What would you recommend if someone wanted to get an introduction on some of the legends around the Pacific Northwest?
Well, region-wise, I have Ghosts, Critters, and Sacred Places of Washington, Oregon. There are 2 volumes right now. And so if depending on where you live or where you want to travel to, but I have city guides if people want to go, particularly to Astoria. I have a Haunted Astoria book and city guides to Portland and Vancouver, Washington as well. And I do ghost walks at a place called the Vancouver Barracks in downtown Vancouver.
And you also have a book called Weird Washington.
I do. And it's out of print now, but I still stand behind it as just a fun book. People will get their kids or their grandkids, and they will pick places to visit. So go on eBay. You can find it for anything from $5 to $250, depending on how good a condition.
Jeff, always a good pleasure talking with you here, and we're doing it at Squatch Fest and Galactic Fest in Longview, Washington on Into the Paranormal.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. I couldn't pass up an opportunity to talk with the
Michael
son
Wallace.
of a part of Bigfoot history.
Exactly.
We're with Michael Wallace, who is the author of Son of Bigfoot. Your dad was Bigfoot?
He was. Truly, there's only one Bigfoot that ever existed. It started with down in Northern California, he was on a logging project. And he was having vandals were coming in, destroying his equipment. And he got sick and tired of it. So he'd come up with this idea that he'd cause a stir and kind of chase people out of the area. Well, it kind of blew up on him pretty much. What happened was he's Toledo, Washington, where he grew up. There was a man that did some carving, right? So he got a hold of him and he had him carve up the feet. Dad gave him the specifications he wanted. And so sent him down to California to him. And what he did was there was a company next to him that was logging also. And a guy by the name of Jerry Crew was running a bulldozer. And you know historically the story, right? So this is 1958, October. And
this is before Patty.
Yes.
Long before.
Long before.
A decade before.
This is the original. This is where Bigfoot started and was created. Anyhow, so he waited till Jerry Crew was gone after work that night. And he got up, he started the bulldozer, and he squeezed a barrel of oil, and he threw it over the bank, parked the cat, and he grabbed some limbs and brushed out his footprints, his own footprints. He put on the big feet that he had made. He had straps made for it. He strapped them on. Dad's a big guy, about 6'2", and he made tracks around Jerry's cat. But there was a lot of worked up soft dirt, so it was really easy to make a deep impression. So Jerry, you can understand what happened in the morning when Jerry showed up, right? Jerry he was toast. He couldn't believe what he saw. And so Jerry freaked out. He quit. He felt so bad. Dad got him a job working somewhere else. But before Jerry left, and what started this whole thing is Jerry made a cast of those prints. He took them to the head reporter, Andrew, at the Humboldt County News in Eureka, California. He presented the cast, and there was a big stir there. And so Andrew came out, and he checked out the prints that were done around the cat. Andrew verified it, went back, and he wrote the article headlined with Bigfoot, and that hit the AP wire, the Associated Press, and went around the world, and Bigfoot exploded. That was the beginning.
And you are the son of Bigfoot.
I am, literally.
And so all these other sightings, what, they're just copycats?
Well, we don't know. I mean, we don't disclaim Sasquatches or Yetis. They've been around a long time, right? The only thing I claim for a fact is I know who Bigfoot is, and there's only one, and that was Wallace, my father, and he was quite a character. If you read my book, you'll understand how the guy was totally out of the box.
So is this something you guys talked about?
Not a lot. This was really kept under wraps until 2002 when he died. We didn't talk about it with friends or family much. It was all really under wraps. There was a few of the guys in the logging company. It was the Buswell brothers and my father, and then some of my cousins, the Wallace cousins, that were making the tracks because they all kind of worked together at that time, right? So they would go from logging job to logging job. Everywhere they went, there was tracks found. So that's really how it started. Very innocently. He never had any idea this thing would blow up and go crazy. So Dad, if you understand him in my book, you learn that from a young man, he was kind of a jokester. He loved doing pranks and telling stories. He's kind of a historian. And so it couldn't have been more perfect.
You still have the feet?
I do.
And you're not going to part with them?
No.
They mean so much to you.
I have no intention at this point. Yeah.
Well, here he is, ladies and gentlemen. We've always been wanting to talk to the son of Bigfoot. He is Michael Wallace. He is the son of Ray Wallace. And we're here at Squatch Fest and Galactic Fest in Longview, Washington. Bigfoot and aliens this weekend here in Longview, Washington. I'm Jeremy Scott. Somewhere between the paranormal and the abnormal, we're having a chance to now catch up with our good friend Craig Yahne. Pacific Northwest Sasquatch Research Group. You guys are an active Bigfooting research organization, is that correct?
Jeremy, yeah. Pretty much most of the time when I'm not working. I've been working quite a bit the last couple of years. I kind of stopped my filming for my documentary film, but I did bring a 25-minute teaser to show everybody. It's basically just aerial shots and some B-roll footage with no narrative. So I'm still trying to hit up people for interviews and stuff like that. And that's the costly part where you just run out of funding because you got to go all over the world to try and interview people. As you know, as a podcaster, it's difficult to spend your own money and time when you're working and trying to survive, and Seattle's expensive. I might end up moving down this way somewhere. It's a little bit cheaper, definitely, for sure. But I'm way up north in, Seattle, north of Seattle. Just driving every day takes time with the construction and gas and the cost of living and stuff. But long story short, I am still an active research group. I've been going out. My area got hit with flooding. So
What area?
I'm up in the North Cascades out by the Suiattle River. It's up near Darrington, Arlington and Darrington. It's way up north Cascades, near Concrete, Washington. That whole area had a huge flood and it washed out the road that was out into my area. So now I have an e-bike to get out there. I got to get on this e-bike and go through the washout, get to the other side, and then I got to ride this e-bike 15 miles to the research area.
Have you seen the e-bikes that are like actual research vehicles?
Yeah, I actually have one of those.
You do?
Now. Yeah, so I bought a full suspension e-bike and I added a bunch of cameras and lights to it. So that's my new vehicle for traveling out in when I'm going out and doing my stuff. But hopefully this year I can get out.
Okay, so where's this footage from?
The footage is actually from that area that I shot in 2021, 22, 23, and 24. So it's a combination of a few years that I edited and put together. It's really good footage. Actually, there's some stuff that if you do see it, when I show it, you might be able to see some of the really cool stuff. I put some game cams out and I got orbs on the game cam. So it's really cool. I hope everybody enjoys watching the 20-minute teaser that I brought.
So tell us about the technology that's on your rigs.
Well, the technology I'm using drones. I got a DJI Mavic Air drone. I got 4 batteries, so I can be up in the air about anywhere from 40 minutes to 45 minutes, somewhere around there. I got 2 game cams that are night vision and day vision. They're video and photo combined together. And so also the bike, the e-bike helps you get around a little bit faster. I do have that Volkswagen van where I can pop the top. It's a camper van, so I can stay in that for 3 days on location in the area. My idea is to get funding and to go out into an area and actually have people bring me food and water and just stay in an area like Jane Goodall did. She was in an area,
live in the bush
for a month and try to stay in an active area and have people come and check on me and see how I'm doing. Kind of like Survivor Man, but in a different formula. He's out for a few days. I want to be out for a month. So my goal is to get sponsorship and stay out for a whole month and try to run it that way.
And you would keep the cameras and the audio recorders going this entire time?
I would like to try to do that. That's going to be a pretty big task. I might need an assistant or somebody to help out with that. But doing all this stuff by yourself can be really challenging. As Survivor Man would say, that he'd have to carry all the gear, set it up, set the tripod up, and then you got to talk into the camera and then move the camera and keep going, So you're like hiking 4 or 5 miles, set the tripod down, do another one and go again. That could be challenging.
Absolutely. So tell us about some of the evidence that you have collected over the years.
Well, over the years, I've got tree knocks, whooping. My dog went crazy when the Sasquatch came into the camping area that we were with, just started barking like crazy. That's on one of my videos that I uploaded to YouTube. I'm actually going to go back into there and redo some editing on that and really focus on that. I lost my dog to cancer. So, prayers and blessings to Ruby. She was only 7 years old when she got lymph node cancer and passed away. So it was pretty challenging for me. That year, it was just, what the things like that happen.
Yeah, they're like family.
Yeah, exactly. For sure.
So, as far as the vocalizations are concerned, are these like, we were talking with Tobe and Alicia from Olympic Strange Days, and they picked up some of this as well.
Yeah.
These aren't words that we would recognize with our ears.
Probably not. You can, when one does a bellowing, deep vocalization from the chest, you're going to hear that. But some of the other ones that they might have mind speak, or they might have some other type of different audio sounds. Ron Moorhead has kind of samurai chatter vocalizations that almost sound like Native American Indian combination of Asian chatter going on, and they're talking that is in the Sierra Nevadas, as we know. But I haven't had that experience yet. But some people who contacted me just recently over by the Olympic Mountains are having stuff like that. So I actually need to go over there as well. That might be one of the new hot areas that I'm going to try to get into, but that's going to take time and money again, because you got to take the ferry and you got to go over there. And I live on this side, and the Olympics are on that side, and it's a long distance travel. So funding and support would be a big help out there. If anybody has a ton of money and they want to help support, please contact me. That would be great, or you, and then we could.
Sure,
I'll invite you to come along.
Absolutely, I'd love to do it.
As long as the wife lets you go.
Sure. Might even bring her along.
Then we will bring her, and she can cook for us. And
we need somebody to bring us food, right?
There we go. Yeah.
Have you ever had a face-on encounter?
People ask me that all the time. No, unfortunately, not yet. Please, please, please. I really am waiting for that.
What does that say about researchers who have not had a Bigfoot encounter who continue to do this? They must know that there's something there.
Absolutely. I started out as a non-believer doing this, and I'm actually a believer now. It's just one of those things where you meet tons and tons of people, and the evidence is just building and building every year. It's the same thing with UFOs. We're getting more evidence every year, and more people are coming forward. I've seen a ton of videos and documentaries on it, on Sasquatch recently. There's some game cam footage just recently in the last 2 days while I was here that were showed on Facebook, on social media on Facebook, of a trail cam Sasquatch in the video format, not a picture format, but a video format of a clear as day Sasquatch. And it's pretty good, pretty convincing. With AI now, we should talk a little bit about that. You have to be careful. AI can actually show us Sasquatch.
There's a whole channel. Have you seen the AI Squatch channel?
I have.
That's some funny stuff, man.
Funny, but definitely. But
it's not real.
Yeah, that's the problem. You got to be able to decipher the difference between real and not real with, as a researcher. And I'm pretty good at that now. Being involved in TV and film and broadcasting and whatnot, I can tell right away. There's software that tells you that it's AI right off the bat.
Greg Yahne, Pacific Northwest Sasquatch Research Group. We're here at Squatch Fest and Galactic Fest in Longview, Washington. I'm Jeremy Scott. You're listening to Into the Paranormal. All right, from Squatch Fest, Galactic Fest here in Longview, Washington, I'm Jeremy Scott, having a blast. We have UFOs and we have Bigfoot, not clashing, but coming together this weekend. It actually makes sense. More than 7,000 UFO sightings in the state of Washington, more than 700 Bigfoot sightings. As I mentioned, Bigfoot probably more popular based on the depictions, all the art, the symbolism, but it is rare compared to the UFO reports. Again, 7,500 from the National UFO Reporting Center tracked the state of Washington. There are two famous UFO events in the state that happened to the north of here, just 3 days apart in 1947. The Maury Island incident in the Puget Sound area involved 6 donut-shaped craft, which showered a boat with molten debris that killed a dog and injured a boy on June 21st. It is recognized as the first alleged encounter with Men in Black. Yeah, that was right here in the Pacific Northwest. There's an annual event that happens in Chehalis, Washington to mark the June 24th Kenneth Arnold UFO sighting. The private pilot and businessman flew out of Chehalis Airport toward Yakima, Washington, spotted 9 strange aircraft flying in and out of formation around Mount Rainier, one of the famous sightings. Also, Mount Adams near Trout Lake. That's where locals gather at a ranch to view UFO activity. There is a reported doorway that has been seen opening and closing, perhaps a portal to a base or maybe another dimension. And I came across this article. The Washington State elk abduction, date February 25th, 1999, in the Cascade Mountains near Mount St. Helens in Washington. This is a wild story of an elk that was lifted into a UFO from a field. This was a sighting about noon during the day, which we've heard from people tonight. There have been daytime sightings for Bigfoot, which is interesting. But also this is a daytime sighting. People thought that it might have been a parachute. So no, it was not a parachute. It was a UFO, and it took this elk into the craft in front of many witnesses. They happened to be forestry workers. Live from Longview, Washington at Squatch Fest and Galactic Fest, I'm Jeremy Scott.
Washington State has logged more reports of unidentified flying objects per capita than any other state in the country. That's according to data from the National UFO Reporting Center.
In 1947, Harold Dahl, a Tacoma resident, and his son, a couple dock workers, they're just off Maury Island. They see 6 flying discs, kind of hollow shaped like donuts. One of them seems to be failing. It starts ejecting a bunch of molten material. Very tragic. It kills the family dog.
They claim to have seen from his mountain rescue plane 9 disc-like objects, roughly 45 miles away, flying at a speed of approximately 1,500 miles per hour near Mount Rainier. The date? June 24, 1947.
Well, at about 2:15, I took off from Chehalis, Washington, and I noticed to the left of me a chain which looked to me like the tail of a Chinese kite, kind of weaving and going at a terrific speed across the face of Mount Rainier.
Adult female elk lifted out of the forest of the state of Washington before 14 witnesses.
They were standing there within 500 yards of they noticed it was a machine rather than a parachute and took it, I'm assuming, into the machine.
Is there intelligent life out there? Well, they'd probably be listening to this show. You're in good company. Into the Paranormal.
Well, we're going to begin the UFO section of Squatch Fest and Galactic Fest here from Longview, Washington. I'm with Thom Reed, who is best known for his role in one of the most well-documented UFO encounters in all of U.S. history. It happened in 1969.
Yeah.
You've seen it on Unsolved Mysteries. There's an official park. I've got some certificates here. What am I looking at, Tom?
Well, our case actually had ties to the space race, and a lot of people don't really realize how this whole thing came to be. Some people will say to me, like, how come Betty and Barney Hill or Travis Walton aren't officially archived or inducted, right? And it's really because my father wasn't a politician. Our case had ties to the space race, and those who had moved into the Berkshires that worked for Sprague Electric, GE, Command Aerospace, Pratt & Whitney, whatever it was, those organizations or manufacturing facilities were then being funded by NASA. And NASA was in Boston, right near MIT. So those would come in from the more metropolitan areas, and now they're in this boring little town working at this little factory. And so they needed a place to hang out. And back in '69, there wasn't an FM radio station. So they came to my mother's diner. So she would pump in quarters because now people are in town, they're spending money. It's not just the locals who come by occasionally for a burger. And so now she's making money again. And so she would just continually feed the jukebox, and then more and more people that were moving into the area were starting to be her regular customers. And so with that, they happened to have an interest in UFOs and space and everything else, the moon landing, right? And so we would talk about, or my mother would talk on behalf of our case, which we were part of, which was more than just a sighting. It was actually, we were extracted from our vehicle and the whole bit. And my grandmother was there, my brother, my mother, they were witnesses to the whole thing. And so with that, she would share that with those who came in to work on the secret space program. And so the conversation came up, what if we left a calling card, right? So that kind of thing. And so with that, those conversations continued. And that's when Sprague Electric thought, well, let's make the goodwill message and give it to Buzz Aldrin. He can drop it on the moon. And that was what Buzz Aldrin left on the moon. That medallion was spawned from the ideas and conversations in my mother's diner. And so that is really how our case really got attention, was because we played a part in real history. Therefore, our event had altered the natural progression of the community and therefore was historically true. But it also went before the United Nations. My father also lost his life on the same day it was mentioned at the UN, and he was a politician. He was advocating the incident. And at the UN, our case went in support of the Hudson River Valley sightings because that was also over a river. And so could have what happened in the Berkshires and the ties to the space race carried over to the Hudson. That's what our case is really about. It's not about what you might see on some of these shows like Unsolved Mysteries, which turned it into a joke.
So it's been mischaracterized?
Oh, well, when I went to film with Unsolved Mysteries, they said, bring all the documents, right? So I brought the originals. I brought, it's in the newspapers in the 1960s. Yeah. We have the original news articles. And yet you'll still see, there's no news articles about it. Yes, there is. And they're on my website. And I've got the okay from the Berkshire Eagle, who ran the story back in the 60s, to use and reprint those articles. This is what I don't understand. You got a WOW case, it's a bunch of nonsense. Everybody's clicking. I was hanging out with Hooters girls with Sasquatch. We're having marshmallows, right? Those get 1 million views. But when you're talking about facts and news articles, then why do you strip it of what makes it so important?
Right.
And for our case, I came down and they had a printer outside at my UFO park in Sheffield, Massachusetts. They had a printer. I brought the documents. They're making copies, and they're like, "Yes, Tom, we'll put them in the film. Have your mother come on. We'd love to have her too." So she went out of her way to do it right after she had heart surgery. All right, she had a stent put in. About 6 weeks later, she did the show. I did it with actually bronchopneumonia. I mean, we all just wanted to make sure that this information got out because they promised me it would. And what did they do? They removed it. It was filmed and removed. They filmed the judge, Kevin Titus, who sealed these documents. Kevin Titus, the judge in the 30th District Court, he drove all the way down there, was in his robe in the courthouse and everything. They filmed him and cut him out. Then they added this guy in with the long blonde hair, Warner, right? They call him Time Warner, right? Because he goes by Tom too. I'm Time Warner because he wanted to be a rock star, right? The reason he got in it was when Unsolved Mysteries had called the Historical Society to go through the files, right? He had answered the phone. And so they're like, yeah, we'd like to talk to Tom, or get information from Tom about the incident. And he goes, I'm Tom. So there was a little confusion there in the beginning, and then he realized what was happening. So he familiarized himself with the file and talked his way on to the show. And his arms were back. Every cliche in the book, right? I was standing on a rock at one point and did this painting that hung in the Roswell Museum. He duplicated that. We were in the station wagon. He posts pictures of himself with a station wagon, or says it was him. I mean, it was just a terrible, terrible train wreck when you really think about it. And the other thing that's really important is that the Sheffield Police Department. Did you see the documentary?
No.
Seriously?
I have not seen the documentary. I am not familiar with much of this. Much of this case.
Well, you'll watch it later, right? You'll see part of it. I'm gonna show it. So what a lot of people don't realize, because they always cut it out. First of all, the Berkshire's UFO incident is just the name of a TV show. There is no such thing. It's the Thom Reed incident.
Because it was you and your grandmother and your mom and your brother, right?
Yeah. And so they called it the Berkshire's UFO because berkshiresufo.com was my website.
Is that the county?
Yes, it's the county. Right. And so once they took it from a family member and turned it into a county affair, right, because it altered the natural progression of the county and community, it was a community event, but it's our family's incident. But there is no such thing as the Berkshire's UFO, right? It's the Reed family, right? You can see it right in the documents. There's nothing that says Berkshire's UFO, right? So then when Warner got on it and these other people got on it, they started saying, oh, it happened over here. It was over near the lake. No, it wasn't. So when Unsolved Mysteries was filming and they went to the Great Barrington Police Department and they opened up their book, there was no reports of anything because it didn't happen there. But when they talked about Sheffield, yes, they talked. The son went out with the chief of police, his father, looking for it. So you can clearly see, if you really watch it closely, Jan Green's description matches mine, and I've never even met the woman. It happened in Sheffield and never happened in Great Barrington.
So were there other people that came forward saying...
Oh, yeah, there's 250 witnesses. But they were witnesses to this case that went before the Historical Society. Now, the Roswell Museum also played a part in this, and I don't know if you're familiar with that either, but they needed an attorney to solidify, sign off on, and validate that the source documents were legit, that they weren't just made up, or, when you induct something into history, you've got to have source documents to support it, right? And so they had a lawyer they were working with, last name was Kessler. She went to Roswell, New Mexico, and she mined for information at the Roswell Research Library. Okay. And actually, the Roswell Daily Record did an article when we were there, interviewed us both. There's pictures in the paper. Actually have that. And so that information was then sent back to the Historical Society and the Historical Society in Great Barrington and the state. And once they looked at that and they said, wow, the Reeds really went to the UN. They had my father's death certificate that showed that he died also on October 2nd, and that he was a politician. And yes, this went in support of GA 33426, which was somewhat tied to the Hudson River Valley sightings. Now they're like, this is bigger than we thought. So they're like, well, let's give Tom a polygraph test. And I passed it with a 99.1%. And I took that at the Department of Defense Polygraph Institute. Matter of fact, an office not far from Tim Burchett's. And passed that. And then they were like, well, what do you want to do with it? And I thought, well, at first they were going to do something for my father, like a marker or like a proclamation or something for him. And then because there was actually a film crew coming into Sheffield now, because it was on the cover of the Boston Globe, they thought, well, let's do something combined to show respect for him advocating it and losing his life over it, right? Because he spoke on behalf of a lot of people who got laughed at and picked on, like a lot of other people back then. And a lot of people passed the hat and they said, well, let's get a marker, let's get a monument, right? And so they made something. It was too big. They didn't like the way it looked. It really wasn't all that professional, but it was the heartfelt monument. Then, of course, they moved it, and then Ancient Aliens paid for the new one, and it just kind of grew. Ben Hansen got a bench. Travis Walton got a bench. The Roswell Museum sponsors it, along with Rita King, the daughter of B.B. King. And so it's become like this. It's got its own legs, right? It means something. It's real. It's not a story, right? And that's another thing I can't stand. Tom, tell me your story. It's not a freaking story. Stories don't get archived into history, right? It's history now. It's not a
It's
story.
an event.
It's history. It's true friggin' history. It's officially archived into U.S. history as the first UFO case ever. How many times have you heard that mentioned on a TV show or Ancient Aliens?
Yeah.
Ancient Aliens did mention it, actually. They were the best. And then, Ben Hansen did a good show for me on UFO Undercover.
Mm-hmm.
I think it was that, yeah. So, but anyway, for the most part, you don't hear about it, right? You don't. But you hear about Bigfoot and the Hooters girls having marshmallows, right? And in the forest somewhere, right, with body paints or something. So that stuff's interesting to people. Apparently, facts aren't. But I am speaking with Tim Burchett, Congressman Tim Burchett. Actually doesn't live far down the road from me. We have lunch once in a while. So I do think it's going to be mentioned at the UAP hearings within a year or so. Anyway, this summer, I'm sure, or by this fall.
Are you getting any inside word that there's going to be something this summer?
I get a lot of info. I know a lot that I could tell you off camera, but I'm not going to do it on camera. And it came right from Congress.
Yeah.
Yeah, for real.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So do you want to answer some questions about the sighting, or?
Well, it was more than a sighting. It was an actual encounter.
Yeah. So beyond the sighting, I mean,
yeah,
were you sucked up into the craft? Did you leave the vehicle? What happened to the car while you're driving over the bridge? I mean.
Okay. So when we came over the bridge, my grandmother was the first one to notice that there was lights or whatever coming through the cracks of the floorboards of the bridge. That was the very first thing. She didn't mention it at the time. She mentioned it afterwards that she knew something felt off. When we came down off the bridge, there was a dip. Not the way it looks now. It's been redone. When you came down, you had to go really slow, otherwise the car would bottom out. And we were in a station wagon, so we were only going like 5 miles an hour, right? So I'm in the back seat. My brother's here. My mother was driving, which is really interesting because that flipped. My grandmother was here. Windows were open. It was really hot that night. It was really unseasonably
Labor Day,
hot,
right?
Yeah,
Labor Day weekend.
But it was like in the 80s or something. It was really hot. And we were looking out the window, and I was giving my brother some candy, and my grandmother said, "Don't give him that. He could choke." And while she turned around, she sees this light, which now makes sense regarding the light under the bridge, moving up as like a cue ball. And it rose up about 2 to 3 stories, whatever it was. I was younger, everything seems taller, right? And it started going in the direction of our car. While it was going forward, this thing was kind of following it a little bit. I wouldn't say following, but going in the same direction. And then my brother noticed something near the water, which was like an orange sphere, and it had a movement to it, like an ocean wave or something. It was like something within the sphere itself, and it was like an orangey yellow. And I saw it too, actually, but he was the one staring at it. He was like, I was blocking this side, and he was blocking that side, right? And so we split them. So at one point, really, you've got one at 9 o'clock and one at 3 o'clock because we split them. And as my mother went down the road, it was super busy, and with crickets and loud noises and frogs and like everything you'd normally hear in a weird dirt road at night, like all that kind of noise and stuff. Then all of a sudden it got quiet, and there was an area where there was a telephone pole where we kind of went off to the side. We stopped, and that's when we saw what looked like a huge sphere hovering over what's now a cornfield. And it didn't have windows. It didn't have like landing gear. It just looked like a turtle shell. It's the way I've always worded it, like a turtle shell, and it just silver and reddish colors. And it just looked beat up. It didn't look like you'd see on the internet, right? It just looked like a big, kind of like a rock, actually. If you listen to my old interviews, I say the same thing. It looked like a turtle shell, faded, dark. But the shell of it, the interesting thing was that the shell of it kind of lit up. So as it started on, I don't know what the front was, but the front of our car, that side had lit up more like a red, and then the light kind of went through the shell into the back of it. So you could actually see it. It wasn't putting out a light, it emitted a light, a faint one, but you can see, just like the cue ball thing, it had its own internal light. And so we're watching this thing. All of a sudden, the crickets end. It's a flash. Everything went silent, like you were deep underwater, right? You could hear like noises that were echoing. The rest of it was all faint. And then next thing I know, my brother and I are on what looked like a airplane hangar. I don't know where we were. It was much bigger than the craft we saw, so I don't think we were on a craft. And then we were taken down a hallway. I remember being laid on a table. I had something come over me. I remember what looked like raisin packs put on my body. My grandmother and mother, when they found themselves awake in the car again, they were in opposite positions. My grandmother didn't really drive, but she took the car back to town for help when she went into Silk's store, which is still there to this day, and they remember the whole thing. Silk's is actually part of this too. They're still the same owners that own. There's a daughters own the same restaurant, and they remember my grandmother going in that night, all those years ago, and she was, like incoherent, didn't know what to say, what to ask for help for. They think she was crazy. At that point, I came to. My brother was still kind of out of it. My mother had come to, and so she just took us home. And the next morning, when she opened up the restaurant, she didn't know that so many other people had seen this, and it was coming over the radio that was near our grill.
So they started talking about it at the restaurant?
First, the radio station had played the call. See, what happened is, this is where it gets really interesting, because there really wasn't a police department there. It was such a small town of like 3,000 people total, I think. The police department asked the radio station, which was AM news, to go out and say, hey, listen, we've got sightings of something. Can you have people call the station and tell us what it is? Where is it? What's going on out there? Because they were ham radio operators and they were reporting it. So Tom J went back to the radio station, got on the air and said, hey guys, if you see something out there, call WSBS radio. And so when they did, they played those calls the next morning. So while those were in there from Sprague Electric, right, some other locals, now they're like, oh my God, that's my grandmother, or that's my sister, that's my brother, hypothetically.
Yeah.
And so then they knew that it wasn't just us that were talking about this thing. And so, yes, so they played it, it got heard. But the 69 event was not the one that really created so much trouble for us. It was 67, which made the newspapers also. People don't realize that either. It was 67 where we were the only ones saying something happened. It was 69 that so many other people now got wind of it. Now we were no longer, that corner house.
Yeah. What do you want to clear up? Misconceptions, things you want to make clear?
Yeah, I would say that, first of all, I'd say that there is no such thing as the Berkshire's UFO incident. That's the name of a show about my family. And I think it's, unfortunate that, it's kind of like, ripping Buzz Aldrin's name from Landing on the Moon and just saying, the shuttle landed there, right? It's like, my father lost his life over this. And the only reason that I talk about it is because I'm trying to bring closure to what happened to my father.
Yeah.
And my brother is very much, a part of that. That's his mission too, although he doesn't talk a lot because he doesn't have time for it. And he's really disgusted that something that has so much meat and potatoes, something that's so, this adds a lot of credibility, and it also opens doors for a lot of other people to be taken more seriously. It's not a story, right? It's true history, and our family member died over it. And yet it comes second to ridiculous tales and people like Tom Warner, who turns it into a circus because he wants some camera time. And that's, unfortunately, that's what it is. And for instance, I know who was involved in this, just like Travis Walton knows who was in his truck. I know who was in our diner. I know who was with us that night, And people say to me, how do you know so-and-so wasn't part of it? Because for, 50 years, no one has ever mentioned a thing. And I know the people that were in that diner. Linda Farrell, you never hear from her. She's the real deal. She's coming on my show to talk about what happened. She was interviewed by Netflix. They didn't use her. I don't know why. She's the real deal. Kevin Titus, the guy who sealed this as the judge, the reason he did it, because he was a witness to the cattle mutilations. They don't talk about that either. There were cattle mutilations that night. Wow. There's crop circles.
Seems like we could talk for 3 hours and only touch the surface here.
Well, I'm sorry, man. Let me go. I can leave, guys, because you're right. You use what you want, but that's what I mean. You're going to see all this today. I mean, this is what I mean about this case. This is why I get so frustrated. Yeah. And then they strip it all away. They took away the cattle mutilations. They took away actual real witnesses. They took away this judge who sealed this thing because he was a witness to it. They discarded all the information and documents from the state, the governor of Massachusetts, the lieutenant governor, the historical society. They took it all out, and then they inserted someone who wasn't truthful.
Did it just not fit their narrative?
I don't know. Why would you strip out? If you are a document...
Change the narrative?
If you're a document-driven program, like Unsolved Mysteries is, who goes out of their way to help find the truth, why do you bury the documents?
Yeah. No, I agree with you there. I agree with you.
Oh, really? Okay, this is why I'm going off. Because this aggravates me too. Because it's not like it was some fly-by-night show. This is Unsolved Mysteries, where if you got information, call our station, right? Call this number,
hot tip,
right? We're a hot tip. And yet they take the documents that, like right here, these are just 2 out of about 15 that they had. I actually had I got the original news articles too. Yeah, and the Historical Society. And they filmed them and took them out. And then renamed the show, took our name off the show, inserted a hoaxer. They inserted a hoaxer after all that. And then they interviewed the wrong police department.
Did they ever acknowledge any of this? Did you express to them?
I threatened to sue them. That's why, like Linda, who was also, she's gone now. She was pretty cool. They did a story on her, did the same thing. They kind of ambushed her too, which doesn't make sense to me because she's got a pretty good case too. The Manhattan, the woman that was hovered out the window in Manhattan. You know about that? You know who that is, Linda?
There was a recent Netflix show about that. Yeah.
So they did the same thing to her. They said, "Hey, listen, we're going to do this. We're going to do a story on you." Like, okay, don't worry about it. We're not going to make you look silly or whatever. We want to hear the truth. Sit down, they interview you, and then they remove a lot of what she said, like they did to us, and then they bring in, like with her, they brought in Bob Hopkins, ex-wife or widowed wife, and threw her under the bus. I mean, it was really unfortunate. That's what they did to us. They removed the information and inserted a hoaxer and then made a joke about it.
Tom, how can the audience learn more about your case?
I'm not finished. I'm not even close.
Where can they get the podcast?
I'm going to keep going because I know your audience wants to know, even though he has a short attention span.
We'll have you back.
No, forget it. It's fine.
No, I'd love to have you back.
I'm just kidding, buddy.
See, I can joke around with you, and I just met you.
Yeah. No, I get really frustrated with it because I think you understand. I lost a family member over it. Yeah. So, yeah. But thank you. Yeah. I mean, that's in all sincerity, man. I really appreciate
Absolutely. It was my pleasure to talk
to keep
to you.
Waiting too. I appreciate that.
Oh, no. Things happen. We're live. We're doing radio. We're at a conference. Everybody's got a schedule. We just appreciate you being able to sit down with us and talk about the Reed family UFO sighting here at Squatch Fest and Galactic Fest in Longview, Washington. I'm Jeremy Scott, into the paranormal.
Thanks, Jeremy.
Here at Squatch Fest and Galactic Fest in Longview, Washington, winding down our time this afternoon, talking with Ben Hansen. You know him from Faked Paranormal Files and also UFO Witness, but you were also a former FBI special agent in charge. Is that right?
Not agent in charge. No, that's like the head guy.
No. So I gave you too much of a title?
Yeah. No, I did some work with him as a position special agent. So.
And any of that dealing with the anomalous?
Not at all. Yeah, nothing sexy there. It was investigating mostly sex crimes, child sex crimes, and severe physical stuff that I did before going into the Bureau. Yeah.
So is there a reason you kind of changed careers, if we want to call this a career?
Yeah, I mean, I've always been interested in it. It's not like I left to do this. It was something that I guess you could say since I was like 5 years old after watching E.T. that really interested in me. And I keep it sort of like a hobby because you have to either be, doing constant TV shows, writing books or something if you're going to really make money out of it. It's more just a passion. And if I get a TV show, it's icing on the cake,
Well, and you're known for a couple of those, but you're also one of the most notable experts. Anytime there's a UFO revelation of any kind, we see you on News Nation and other outlets. And that's got to take a lot to stay up on everything that's happening with disclosure, especially in these days.
Yeah, thanks. It does. It is like a full-time job. I mean, especially the UFO subject, because a lot of the other stuff, paranormal and cryptids, it's more historical. Like you go into a location, it's like, okay, what happened here? But UFO stuff not only is historical, but what's happening currently impacts us politically, socially, and disclosure in general. What's going to happen?
You think we're making progress?
Depends on what you consider progress. You know, some people
Getting the mainstream over to our side. I mean, you and we may already agree, but it's really those that we need to break.
Yeah, if we're talking about like the stigma and getting people to accept the reality of it, for sure, it's been a tremendous change in just, I'd say, the past maybe 5-6 years. A lot of people want so-called disclosure. They want to know everything right now, so they're disappointed. But I think you have to look at the overall picture and how far at least the public perception has come, and that's definitely been favorable.
You think that's one of the reasons is we're ready for this? We've been itching for it. The public has kind of come around on this, or why has there been this push the last 5 or 6 years?
Some people might be ready. I disagree with a lot of people, though, because they all want to have this dichotomy of like either people are going to panic or they're going to be okay with it, you know, and handle it. And I don't think it's like that. It's more nuanced, you know, because it doesn't take a majority of people to panic to have problems in society. And we saw that during COVID.
Yeah.
Right. And so that's kind of what we're studying now. So I don't really have an agenda for it. I'd like to see disclosure like everyone else, but it just needs to be done correctly.
So how do you determine fact or faked? Obviously, there's rigorous protocols that you run some of these cases through, witnesses and that sort of thing.
Well, I mean, first of all, people send me stuff all the time. It does help if there's video and photo to it. I think we too often dismiss the witness accounts where there's no video. Right. So you got to look at the credibility of the person. And then tricky thing is, though, with the increase in tools that we have, you know, software to use to look at this stuff, also the tools to hoax things.
Right.
And AI now, I mean, like people run this through an AI. It's like, look, you know, there's a UFO flying over the apartment. And if you don't have the raw video, and even then, you know, it's just, it's so hard to tell. It's diluting real video evidence rapidly.
Well, and sometimes when these videos are released by the Pentagon, Congress, members of Congress, ATIP, whoever is releasing these to the Stars Academy, they're lacking a lot of that metadata, which makes it tough for photo video analysts to even give it a good eye.
It does, and that can be faked, and that's why I've always tell people I don't think that's going to be the smoking gun. If people are waiting for that perfect video, you know, the theoretical, you know, like disc landing on the White House lawn, the proverbial, you know, like here it is, and it's not going to even convince half the people, I think. If that were to happen, you're going to have the other people say it's political, it's a stunt, it's a movie trailer, it's CGI AI, whatever, right? It's, unless they were there, it's just not going to be the case, I don't think. The reason that you have a lot of yardage we've gained with the Navy videos, for example, is because they have been authenticated, right? And you have that stamp of official acknowledgement that that was our video. So if you're going to say it's not real, then you also have to imply the government hoaxed it for some reason, right?
If you were brought in as a consultant to maybe work with, I don't know, somebody like Burchett or Burleson or even Paulina Luna or one of those other officials who are putting together some of these hearings, is like who we should bring in, who we should not bring in, what we should focus on, what the line of questioning should be. Do you have some suggestions?
Well, there's my group.
That's a good start.
I've got a group of top-notch STEM, you know, science professors and people who work in the industry for, you know, like JPL, NASA, and have worked for three-letter agencies everywhere. And they're really good at what they do, you know. So it's unfortunate that sometimes they're so eager to get this stuff out. They get to the hearings and they're like, hey, I just got this video, you know, and they throw it out there. And then it would be great icing on the cake, but it ends up being explained, you know, within hours. And so it's kind of like fodder. It's like, look, we don't need the flashy. If you want to put something out there, let's get it vetted. Let's take the proper time, and get it all vetted frontwards and backwards and do it properly. You know, and that's what we can do basically. But,
so it's kind of like 2 steps forward, 1 step back type of thing with a lot of.
And I'll throw in some other names like SCU, you know, Scientific Coalition of UFO Studies, and there's some other groups that do the nuts and bolts breakdown of it. But that takes time, and people don't want to wait for it. You know, it can take like a year to come out with a report, and they're like, "No, we want it now." You know, So it's hard.
Here he is, Ben Hansen. You know him. He's all over the place. News Nation, Fact or Fake, Paranormal Files, UFO Witness, and he's here with us at Squatch Fest and Galactic Fest in Longview, Washington. It's been my pleasure being with you all weekend, friends, and we'll talk to you next time, somewhere between the paranormal and the abnormal. Good night.